We have this post by Elon Musk, and he says that in a technology race, the company that innovates fastest wins. All you need is a billion AI chips, a terawatt of power, and 100 million robots.
Yeah, I think we should just pause on that last sentence for a minute, right? A billion AI chips, a terawatt of power is huge, and 100 million robots. I mean, if you saw 100 million robots standing in one place, it would be an awe-inspiring view, wouldn't it?
It would be a very frightening view.
A very frightening view.
I don't think they've ever gathered 100 million people in any one place ever.
Yeah. I don't know what the largest standing army ever was, but any amount of people or robots, anything beyond a million is probably a staggering sight.
It's probably greater than the population of 70%, 80% of the world's countries.
Right.
So about 100 million robots, if you think about it at industrial scale, is really not that much. If you think about the number of how many iPhones exist in the world, billions.
That's right.
1.9 billion or something, some ridiculous number.
Yeah.
So 100 million robots doesn't sound like it's too much, as long as it's not standing in one spot, as you say.
That's right.
It would be a very frightening army.
Well, the interesting thing is Volkswagen makes about 10 million or so vehicles a year.
Yeah.
And if you could make, 10 robots for every car that you made, then that's like a Volkswagen kind of production level. Now, robots, the Optimus weighs about 3% of a Model 3. So it's actually, it's not 1/10, it's less than that. So not too difficult, perhaps, for a company like Tesla to make 100 million robots at some point.
Yeah. One of the challenges of robots is that there's a lot of finicky bits.
Yeah.
And China has proved extraordinarily adept at building finicky bits. We less so, Europe less so. I mean, ironically, Apple taught China how to manufacture finicky bits. I mean, literally taught them. It built the skills up and trained 28 million Chinese workers to build iPhones. So, it's become very difficult to actually export that skill, re-export that skill from China to the rest of the world. Even Vietnam and India are not manufacturing the guts of the iPhones. They're still doing final assembly.
Yeah.
So it's going to be very interesting to see if Tesla can ace the manufacturing of robots as opposed to cars.
Well, the ultimate opportunity, as you know, Larry, is for the robots to make robots. And the robots probably would be able to make the finicky bits to the extent that, humans would have needed to be involved. And that's going to be key, is to automate the production of this as much as possible.
And that's the reason I believe that Elon is placing such stress on the hand. Because for the most part, you see these robots with pretty blunt hands, blunt instruments for hands. Not absolutely blunt, but the fingers are merely, outgrowths of the hand, and without all the finicky bits. But Tesla seems absolutely intent on building those finicky bits and making them as, accurate to the hand as possible. And I think that the reason for that is that they need to build that manufacturing expertise into the bot.
Mm-hmm. The easier path would certainly be to build a robot with, 3 fingers instead of, 5, like Boston Scientific is doing, right? And the robot can be quite capable with that. But to your point, ultimately, that's not really the path that you want to go down.
No, not if you want to really build the robot into a true manufacturing skilled worker. Then you have to have a lot more capability than these blunt instruments that are being manufactured. So
the risk with that, of course, is that it may set Tesla back in terms of the race, or it may appear that they're being set back because it may take more time to develop, a 5-fingered hand that is really great, right? Like it's not going to be an easy task. They may have to go back to the drawing board over and over again to get this right. And meanwhile, it may look like other robotics makers are making, great strides where Tesla might not be in one area.
That's
But
right.
ultimately, it's the right decision to make.
That's right. Kind of like the Model 3 versus the Nissan Leaf.
Yeah.
And then there's the Chevy Bolt. Both of those came before the Model 3.
Yeah.
And the Model 3, just made them look like, the blunt instruments that they were in if we use the robotic terms.
And I think we've seen that with Apple, that Apple generally tends to get it right when they come to market with something new, historically, not always, not 100% of the time. They've kind of been famously late, right? They didn't invent the smartphone. And then I think even Tesla with self-driving cars. Waymo has been blazing that trail for a little bit longer than Tesla has. But ultimately, Tesla's coming to market with a scalable solution that Waymo does not have.
I wouldn't call Waymo as blazing the trail. It's more like slogging the trail.
Agreed.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's just talk about XAI very briefly. So XAI, it looks like, and Ed Ludlow reports that XAI is boosted its funds raising effort to $20 billion. But it says the majority is in debt. And it's kind of like a lease deal where they're going to lease, I guess, the processors from the GPUs from NVIDIA. NVIDIA is going to provide the financing for the GPUs. That's going to be where they get the, quote, billion GPUs, unquote, from NVIDIA. And they're touting that as a $20 billion raise. I mean, the amount of cash going into these companies is just staggering. It's a little frightening. It's a little, one wonders if we're at the brink of some sort of collapse, just like the .com bubble. What's your view on that?
My view is that we're just beginning the ultimate investment that we need to make in AI. And while these numbers seem colossal, I think we, ain't seen nothing yet. This is a reindustrialization of the planet. We're going to redo computing. As Jensen says, every computing device is going to be GPU. Right there, that's trillions in investment. Not to mention the new uses of AI that we're developing, and FSD is a great example of that, right? It's never existed before, and we need the compute, we need the chips in the cars for all that. And so, to me, as frightening as some of these numbers sound, and as massive as the investment is, I think we're just beginning.
Have you contemplated at all the total gross product of the world after this AI revolution? Have you given it some thought and sensed the magnitude of it?
Well, in theory, it becomes uncapped. This notion of GDP as we measure it, it's labor times productivity. And robotics and AI, even in a computer, addresses the labor part, and it also addresses the productivity part. So if labor approaches infinity and productivity approaches infinity, what's infinity times infinity, right? It's a big number.
It's quite a large number, yeah.
Right. Now that's the extreme. Obviously, there are some caps on all this. Our ability to produce chips, our ability to produce enough energy, that we do have gating factors on this. But in the final analysis, it's really unlimited in terms of what GDP could be at some point.
So if cost of production falls to zero, and then your limits are just raw materials.
Yeah.
And I guess with the energy of the sun, it's the limit of the energy of the sun, right?
That's right.
And so do human beings stop reproducing at that point? I guess we're getting into areas that we probably not that knowledgeable on, but nobody's knowledgeable on this kind of.
Well, it's worth thinking about. I think a lot of people are sort of worried about what is the role of humans if we're creating machines that can replace us in almost every way. One thing that machines, I think, won't replace us with is the ability to create other humans. Although I suppose that may change over time. But the question is, how will humanity adjust to this change? If the goal of having children is to produce a labor force, then yeah, you don't need as many children. But if the goal of having children is something else, and maybe we need to evolve to that something else that's not obvious, it's not apparent today, then people may have more children. If, for example, if having children becomes easier because the robots do a lot of the heavy lifting, so to speak, and the cleaning up and dealing with all the stuff that makes it difficult to be a parent, right? And these days, families, both husband and wife are gainfully employed. They just don't have time to raise a big family. If all that changes and now we have a world where the parents can be with the kids, it might be a lot more enjoyable and people might have a lot more kids. And particularly if the cost of raising kids comes down, then that opens it up as well. I mean, who doesn't enjoy being with family generally? There's always exceptions. But in general, I think most people would say the larger the family, the better.
Right.
Right. And perhaps you can speak to that, Larry, with the extended family that you have, right? Doesn't it give you a lot of joy to be with your family?
Yeah, we've not, I and my children and my parents have not had huge families. We're always 2 or 3 kids on average, so the average is like 2.3 or 2.35 children. But we are a very close family and we all stick together a lot, not only, with our children and grandchildren, but cousins and so on, aunts and uncles and parents and grandparents. So for us, it's a joy. But a lot of kids are not having kids anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been so far the progress in the 20th century and the 21st century have indicated that the wealthier a nation becomes, the less it reproduces, which is a little frightening. I think Elon's sense that the preservation of the light of human consciousness is in fact the purpose of being. And I subscribe to that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you subscribe to that, then, all of the idea that you produce children in order to create labor falls away. And really, it's a supernumerary effort. It's kind of a consequence rather than a purpose. And if we have robots, then those consequences don't count. But preserving the light of human consciousness, I think, does count an awful lot.